Welcome to the Poetry Box Live. I'm Shawn Aveningo and I'll be your host for tonight's show. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, my husband Robert and I run a small independent press here in Portland, Oregon, known as the Poetry Box, where we publish about 30 poetry books per year. The Poetry Box Live takes place on Zoom on the second Saturday of each month. It's our way of supporting our talented authors to help them reach a broader audience. And for this month, we are very excited to present part 2 of our book launch celebration for the 12th issue of the Poeming Pigeon, a journal of poetry and art. We have a very special show for you today with 12 of our contributing poets, all from right here in Oregon, sharing their poems from the book. We will also feature more of the stunning artwork from the issue. So here's a little bit about how the show will proceed. The poets will read in the order they appear in the book. So those of you who have a copy of the book can follow along, as I will also mention the page number. I'd like to start with part of the introduction from the book. Who could have guessed an anthology of poems about birds would evolve into such a tremendous and rewarding experience? But here we are, after 11 uniquely themed issues of the Poeming Pigeon. We are thrilled to bring you the next evolution of the series, a journal of poetry married with stunning visual art. For this issue, instead of restricting the subject matter to a particular theme, we invited artists and poets to submit works on any topic, a bit of anything goes, if you will. So to let everyone create freely and to share what needs to be told, what needs to be seen, and what needs to be felt. Dylan Thomas once said, "A good poem is a contribution to reality. The world is never the same once a good poem has been added to it. A good poem helps to change the shape of the universe, helps to extend everyone's knowledge of himself and the world around him." And we feel the same can be said about a stimulating piece of art. As we share a sampling of the poems and artwork with you today, I hope you experience something new, something profound, something that opens your heart even a little wider than it may already be. Take in the vastness of the human experience. Connect with the beauty of our natural world. Let yourself laugh until you cry or cry until you laugh, and maybe even discover something new in yourself along the way. Let's start off with our first slideshow of some of the artwork from the book. Here we have Bird Over Sunset, a digital collage by Dale Champlin. Dale is a prolific Oregon artist and poet whose art collages have been popping up in literary journals and gracing book covers. As a career designer and daughter of an artist mother, she certainly has an eye for blending the unexpected to create such stunning artwork. A Joy to See is an original oil on canvas by the late Kay Levine, shared with us by her daughter, Sherri Levine. Kate was an award-winning painter born in New York City, who also taught art to children. Sherri has collected many of her mother's paintings and married them with poems by local Oregon poets for a book soon to be released early next year. And this is Contemplation, an acrylic collage on paper by Jennifer Lommers, who spends most of her time in her studio painting colorful, vivid interpretations of her personal connection with nature. We fell in love with the movement in this piece and how it related beautifully to many of the poems in the journal. And now for some poetry. Our first poet is Amelia Díaz Ettinger, reading her poem, Mourning Dove, on page 26.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Shawn, for giving us this opportunity. In this poem, there is a lot of fun facts about this particular species. Mourning Dove, Senaidia macura. Mourning Dove, that avian rascal of the columbiformes, a total misnomer of the name, mourning. You remind me of high school girls, the ones at recess wanting to find a boy to flirt. They used to sing a doleful sound to gain attention. Oh, oh, oh. A certain snare. Listen, What is there to lament? You can drink salt in water to your crop's content. Populate the continent from shore to shore, suburbs to heartland. And then there is your flight. Swift and direct, there is no glide or guile. Here, how you tease, following your mate with a suitor at your side. Did you engage in a ménage à trois when you sing, ooh, 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 ooh? Or is it gloom? Is it gloom or impish song? I have some.
Thank you, Amelia. I have to tell you, I was just in Sacramento last weekend visiting my daughters, and we spotted 3 mourning doves in their backyard fig tree. And I couldn't help but think of your poem and that menage a trois. Started to wonder, do they always travel in 3s? True story. Next up, we have Emmett Wheatfall reading his poem, Sunday Evening, on page 31.
Good evening, everyone. I look forward to sharing with you an elegy written in prose form, and it's titled Sunday Evening. Sunday Evening. The text reads, "My oldest daughter earned her wings on Sunday evening. My uncle is mourning. Something must be said for her passing away Sunday evening. It feels so uneven given the balance of the day. Ironically, I have watched birds take to flight in the evening, never again to return. What more could she have asked for other than to take flight? Some ministers say people get wings upon their passing. The biblical psalmist speaks of taking the wings of the morning. I can't imagine turning that down. At least her acceptance into the great beyond was not roughshod. I hope I get wings, wings the size of eagles. It continues to be my challenge, earning them."
Thank you, Emmett. That is such a lovely tribute poem. And I just love that humble last line about the continued challenge we all face in earning those wings. And as always, it is such a pleasure to hear your read. You have such a lovely voice. So thank you for sharing with us today. Next up, we have Leanne Grabel reading her poem, Bingo, on page 49.
Hello, am I there? Yes. I love this book. I'm so happy to be in it. Bingo. This is about one of the last times I saw my mother in Mill Valley, California. She was in assisted living. It was about 5 days before her 96th birthday. Bingo. Bingo was the last game I played with my mother. Redwoods, skilled nursing, Mill Valley, California. It was across the street from Tamalpais High School, where Tupac went. It was the sad corral, so to speak, outside that final rodeo. Good landscaping and creative desserts, but no hope. The other residents were so old, they'd become exhibitions. The spectrum of confusion and decline was short and steep, but everybody was nice. The nurses, the volunteers, the residents, except Janet, my mother's roommate. She was always droning complaints. My mother had many moments of lucidity. Then she'd spin out through decades into a chaos of memories. She'd ask for phone numbers of those long dead. The men at the table were already ghosts, gray as paper ash. They were folded into their chairs like poorly erased commas. The bingo cards, the size of TV tables, the bingo pieces, the size of dinner plates. Imagine tiny Lily Tomlin. Now imagine an enormous chair. Some of the residents stared oddly at the bingo cards as if they were staring at goo or goop. They cocked their heads like dogs. Florence bent all the way sideways. Then she'd return upright so slowly she appeared to be mocking, moving slowly. She was way behind in her moves, and I offered to help her, but she batted me away. My mother was on top of her game. She had 3 cards going at all times, and she bingoed 4 times throughout the evening. In fact, everybody bingoed at least once, even Florence, but I didn't. The most I ever got was 3 in a row. That bingo game was the last time I saw my mother awake. 6 weeks later, she was comatose. I sat by her bed for 8 days and watched her die. I didn't say much. I held her hand. It was hot as a baby's, floppy as an exercise band. I felt generous and calm. I was finally acting like a daughter. I kissed my mother on the mouth every morning that week. I remembered my young puppy love for mommy after so many years. It was dusty, but enormous as a lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. I love that story, and I love the way you take these difficult, poignant moments in our lives and always manage to celebrate the lighter side. I love that. We'll be showing her illustration that goes with this poem in a bit. And for those of you who are fans of Leanne's work, do check out her newest book, My Husband's Eyebrows, available on our website bookstore. Next up, we have Anne Richardson reading her poem, Post-Menopause Landscapes, on page 50.
Thank you. Like everyone else, honored to be here and such. Oh, I'm already just overwhelmed by the beauty of these poems. Thank you for being in this lovely company. Post-menopause landscapes. 1, post-menopausal postmortem. Medicalized, stigmatized, symptomized, and depleted. Bodies buried, relics wasting in arid lands, shriveled banshees, their soliloquies silenced under strata of beauty culture. 2, post-menopausal revision. Late summer fruit ripening like figs, pears, apples, fertile follicles of ideas, ladening wild places within, bearing down and crowning, releasing compote simmered in wombs, reclaiming seeds of stories once banished to the desert. This ripe fruit, not sweet, not delicate. This second season fruit drips down your chin, tastes of truth, infused with mystery, coats your throat with questions, beckoning for pilgrimage, not answers. Do not let this fruit rot. No, prepare a feast, indulge in the bounty. 3, what the experts say. Symptoms that may appear during menopause and continue through post-menopause include painful intercourse, vaginal dryness, atrophic vaginitis, thinning of the membranes of the vulva, the vagina, the cervix, and the outer urinary tract, along with considerable shrinking and loss and elasticity of all the outer and inner genital areas. What I say, beauty is in the sandstone curve of the hips, eroding into a scree of ass and thigh, dimpled by weight won and lost over decades of debating the mirror. Delightful are the breasts that sway full while collapsing downward. Central is an oasis of dune shifting abdomen, welcoming tongue of a lover, exploring this storied bodyscape as thunderclaps are felt on scorched terrain. before the wetting of arid wadis, before the shrinking gives way to swelling, before banshees cry fill the night, this woman, a rainstorm blossoming in the desert, no longer invisible.
Awesome.
Oh, and I have to say, as a woman of a certain age, you nailed it. I think I'll take that last section where you completely contradict the experts and tape that stanza to my bathroom mirror to read every morning. I just love it. Thank you so much for writing that. Okay, well, it's time to transition to another slideshow to see some more art. Here we have Leanne Grabel's whimsical illustration that accompanies her bingo poem. Remember Florence bending sideways? And those game pieces the size of dinner plates? Whether drawing or writing, Leanne has a talent for finding the humor to help us deal with life's difficult moments. And who doesn't need a little more laughter in their life these days? And this is Pechos en Azul, which translates to breast in blue. It's one of 4 mixed media paintings in the book by Paula Maloney. Paula, a recent breast cancer survivor, created a large series of paintings celebrating the female form while reinforcing her belief in strength, beauty, and health. This act of creating art served as a form of therapy while she was undergoing radiation treatments last summer. And we're happy to report she's in full remission. And here we have Streaming, a digitally enhanced photograph by Carolyn Martin. I fell in love with the innocence and curiosity of this piece. And I have to say that even though Carolyn calls herself a lucky amateur, she certainly has a knack for pulling a story out from behind the lens. And now for some more poetry. Next up, we have Rebecca Smolin reading her poem, Subverge, on page 55.
Thank you, Shawn and Robert. Yes, it is certainly an honor. And I love the publishing company and the Poeming Pigeon that you two run so gracefully. Every time it amazes me. This poem started out with a prompt about an octopus that is called the blanket octopus, and when it is in threat or feels threatened, it unravels like a blanket. So this is called Subverge. I already feel as if I unravel in waves, as if with each step deeper in, I let another worry go. Salt water washing up to my ankles, a clean breath at this lean moment, greater than any other since last I was in. Sea foam coats and lingers at my knees, hydrates the ashy bits, washes the dead pieces away. Dark depth up to my gut releases the hold society had on it. I stop walking when it rises to my breast. Who wouldn't hesitate? This is the depth that makes me liminal, no longer safe on shore and not so much out to sea, but with one good wave or one strong undertow, I'd be gone. And this is a metaphor for age. There's so much truth in you're only as old as you feel. Yet I have felt as young as raspberry blossoms on thorny vines that grow from dirt, and as old as tide that hides worlds revealed at dusk or dawn. There is an elegance to being beautiful when you're at an edge. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I love the fact that you pulled this out from a prompt about an octopus. I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. There's a lot of wisdom in this poem, and I agree. there is an elegance to being beautiful when you're at the edge. I think sometimes we can surprise ourselves finding grace and strength when we least expect to be able to. So thanks for that. Next up, we have Eileen McGurn reading her poem, The Color Wheel, on page 62.
Hi, thank you, Shawn and Robert, and thank you everyone for being here. The Color Wheel. I thought what I loved was green, spring, and the cool clarity of water, the longest section of the visual spectrum. Our eyes were made for watching green. But what is green but blue and yellow? And alas, I do not love yellow. I have a deep and quiet fondness for purple with its gentle shadows, the bruise of grapes and juice of berries. But what is purple but blue and red? And after all, I do not love red. Perhaps what I love indeed is blue, but its beauty from robin's egg to sky, from twilight lake to storm cloud, is too strong to be faced head on. I love askance, askew, out of the corners of my eyes, without dilution from its neighbors on the wheel. Blue may be just too true, too blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. This poem kind of reminds me of when someone asks, what's your favorite color? And I can never, ever decide. I love this conversation you have with yourself over why you like one color over another, but not part of the color or part of the color that makes that color. That's pretty cool. And that ending, I knew as soon as I read it that it was going to be the perfect poem to pair with Paula's painting, Pechos en Azul. So thank you so much for sharing this poem with us today. Our next poet is Carter McKenzie, reading her poem, I Want to Live, on page 70.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Shawn. It's so good to be here and to listen to these poems and from this beautiful journal. I want to live. Everything is threatened, but meanwhile, everything presents itself. Denise Levertov, In the Woods, from Sands of the Well. I want to live, says the trace of light gleaming on the branch, blossoming with white flowers of wild pears. I want to live, says the trace of rain on the stones before disappearing into the air. And I want to live, say the stones again, in the midst of water, of creeks, the talking mountains, the clamor of stones, dividing the waters of the earth. I want to live, say the singing tree frogs, in certain seasons of rain, before those seasons fade away. Following winter after winter, I want to live, says the sheen of buttercups, thick on the curve of the unspectacular hill, the shadows of the lake today, rippling dark fir trees, their far, delicate green tipped against wide spaces, sky inhabited by the departing instincts of flight, the many unseen and subtle adjustments of feathers. I want to live, says the little fishing boat drifting by, caught by accident in this frame. I want to live, says the thread of attention, the depths of the turning and turning, the still alive, journeying fish. Thank you.
Oh, Carter. I have to say, when I first read this poem, I was thinking about my best friend who was fighting breast cancer. And then the other day when I was going through all the poems and preparing for this show, I came across this poem again and read through it, and it touched me in a very different way, thinking about my husband, Robert, and how he fought to stay with me, how he wanted to live, how he wanted to continue our journey. So thank you for writing and sharing this now very special poem in my heart. Thank you, Carter. Next up, we have Joan Rush McCulloch reading her poem, A Story While Cutting Onions.
I'm very thankful for this opportunity to be included in this gorgeous, sumptuous journal. Thank you. A story while chopping onions. Suppose you bump into him at the market. The first frost blankets the pumpkins. The day is cold. Your temple pulses. Suppose he asks you about your life now. How do you answer after so many years? You could tell him chopping onions makes you laugh. You could tell him your scar lets you know when the storm is coming. You could tell him about how your partner finds you in a fetal position on the floor after a nightmare. The day is cold. Your temple pulses. Instead, you focus on his new wife, standing with him, her eye blooming like a black orchid. Instead, you tell her about the orchid you once nurtured, how the bloom faded when you left him. You give her the onion. The day is cold. Your temple pulses. The first frost blankets the pumpkins. Thank you.
Oh, Joan, this is one of those brilliant poems that turns and just totally surprises me. The compassion in reassuring the new wife that the scars will fade, and then handing her the onion so she too can laugh. Wow, all I can say is wow. That's quite a poem, quite a story. So thank you. Okay, well, it's time to take a break and look at some more art. Changes in the Rain, a photograph by Portland poet Liz Nakasawa. Liz has certainly captured Portland's characteristic rain and our beautiful fall colors. I quite enjoy the stark contrast of the brilliant leaves against the dark river rock. Here we have Caterpillar, Pelican, Skylark, a trio of acrylic paint and ink works by Cynthia Yachman. Her abstract images contain many diverse layers of meaning, from the universal to the specific and personal. She is frequently interested in pattern and creating a rich sensual surface by marking layer upon layer to reveal unseen history within, as images are both obscured and revealed. Salt River Palomino is a watercolor by Terry Cox Joseph. Terry's artistic influences range from the Wyeths to Maxfield Parrish. She divides her time between realistic figurative pieces and looser watercolors and acrylics, and even dabbles in photography. I just love the gentle way of this horse's sweet face. So let's pivot again and return to the last set of our poets. We have Sue Facalde Lick reading her poem, The Poet's Report to Work, on page 94.
Hi there. Thank you for including me in this gorgeous thing. This is a gorgeous publication, really. I think the best one I've ever seen. I read it so fast, like a novel. It was wonderful. The poet reports to work. I slide into place on the tattered love seat beside the semi-sleeping dog. She sighs and props her feet against my fuzzy robe that smells of peaches and banana bread. I record the date, describe the weather, hazy with a bit of wind, but warm. Report the daily news. Foot still hurts. Church choir last night. Stopped for milk. Ran into a friend. Went to bed too late. Slept fitfully. Dreamed I was on a trip. But none of this is getting me to a poem. Bought milk. Milk. Stolen from a cow. Meant to feed her calf. No, milk, milk, milk. It's white, white as clouds, white as paper, white as bleached bones rotting in the desert. No, 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 that's not a poem I want to write. The dog is kicking in her sleep, whimpering. I stroke her tawny fur, tell her, it's okay. She wakes, stretches, rolls onto her back. I rub the thin white belly fur, trace the scar from her hysterectomy, and check for fleas. I still don't have a poem. I lean down, face to face, feel the dog's breath on my skin. It smells of milk bones, grass, and life. Feeling safe, she sleeps, eyes shut tight, body rising and falling with waves of air. I start to feel drowsy. I close my eyes, doze beside the snoring dog, inhaling, exhaling, jolting awake to find a squiggle of blue ink on the notebook page. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sue. You know, I think this might be one of the most honest Ars Poetica poems ever. And it's amazing how that scribble of blue ink turned itself into this poem. So thank you so much for sharing. Next up, we have MF McCullough reading her poem, Waiting for the Max, on page 95.
Thank you for letting me be in this lovely book. It's just beautiful to hold. It's beautiful to handle. It's a lovely object apart from everything else. Waiting for the max. Fallen rain in the slight declivity at my foot, where the cement has sunk, a little glimmering sky. Strangers up and down the platform. I don't want to hear their arguments and their business. Their business. Out beyond the platform, weeds grow next to the sleepers, rusted green as the irons rusted brown. I want to be there, one of them, lying in the sun when the sun dries the ground, on the dust and rust lee side of the track. Or be at lunch, laughing during one of those long, long summers with time and friends to burn. I don't want to be in this cold, wearing this awkward, inadequate coat on my way to small grey walls and complex futility. I want to look at the ground and see the sky and walk in the bright underbelly of the stars.
Thank you, Maura. You have such a way with language that you can take the most mundane activity like waiting for the train and turn it into something lovely. And I absolutely love the juxtaposition of looking down to see the sky. The magic of rain puddles. Love it. Next up, we have Dale Champlin reading her poem, Remembered Images Emerge, on page 135.
Thank you so much, Shawn and Robert. What a delight to be in this beautiful publication. I'm so grateful to both of you. Remembered images emerge, a pantoum. Blue fades to gray, mottled mauve as hills far away. In and out of fog, horses bend their necks to the grass. Clouds and swallows skim overhead, and branches sway. I wander the long path to the mountain pass. In and out of fog, horses bend their necks to the grass. The vertical world beckons, pollens drift, bony trees, ferns, wildflowers border the path to the mountain pass. I revel in birdsong, snow melt trickle, abundant bees. The vertical world beckons, pollen drifts through bony trees. Perhaps even now, mist transforms the understory. A revel of birdsong, snowmelt trickle, and abundant bees. Closer than a whisper, I approach the edge of a quarry. Perhaps even now, mist transforms the understory. I look down, and further down to the boulders below. Closer than a whisper, I touch the edge of the quarry. A sudden shadow, a sharp noise, a screech as a crow flies down and further down to the boulders below. Sometimes I remember images, the blueness of bone, a sudden shadow, a sharp wing beat, the caw of a crow. Certain dread pumps my chest with music. A drone reminds me of images, chalk, the blueness of bone. Mystery lies thick as fog on the mountainside ahead. Certain dread pumps my chest with music. A drone, here on this path, why am I not home in my bed? Mystery lies thick as fog on the stony path ahead, the place I visit in dreams. My blues fade to gray. Here on this path, why am I not home in my bed? When I began, I felt the promise of a beautiful day. Perhaps even now, mist transforms the understory. Clouds and swallows skim overhead, and branches sway. Closer than a whisper, I touch the edge of the quarry. Blue fades to gray, mottled mauve, as hills far away.
Thank you, Dale. I love the idea of a pantoum with its repetition for weaving all these beautiful images and memories in and out of each other. It's just perfect. And that first and last line with its blue fades to gray, mottled mauve as hills far away was just the absolute perfect pairing with Jeannie Roberts' artwork, which I'll be showing soon. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Anne Farley reading her poem, Elephant in the Room, on page 146.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Robert. It is a gorgeous book. I'm delighted to be part of it with all the great poets and artists. I also want to thank Emmett Wheatfall because he saw an early version of this poem and said, you might consider adding an epigraph, which I did, which adds to it. Elephant in the Room. The beauty of anti-racism is that you don't have to pretend to be free of racism to be an anti-racist. Anti-racism is the commitment to fight racism wherever you find it, including in yourself. And it's the only way forward. By Ojialba Aluwal, I can't pronounce her name, author of So You Want to Talk About Race. 10 flap ears fan back and forth, baobab body rocks on tree trunk legs. She swings a foot, backed into a corner by the fireplace, her tail flicks and swishes, left flank uproots an easy chair, scatters books and photos off shelves, tips the TV. A tusk punctures a couch cushion and her trunk curls up, slaps the ceiling. I did not corral her ancestors, did not chain and ship them to bear the burden, but somehow I allowed it to happen. Some say, no, it's her own doing. Some say, call the authorities. Some say, protect yourself, protect your property, protect your rights. Some say, shoot. These things I know. The elephant in the room has precise hearing, fierce loyalty, a memory that spans generations. She is no predator, only wants to graze on leaves, bark, and roots, encircle her young, shower her skin with dust, bathe in rivers, tend her herd. How she ended up here, her cornering is my doing. I have to find a way to let her out, even if it means dismantling my house, wall by wall, board by board. Thank you.
Anne, This is brilliant. I know we're not supposed to use cliches, right? But I love the way you purposely used this very common cliche to build such a powerful message. I mean, it is the metaphor and meaning layered upon meaning, is phenomenal. And this poem really makes us all look at our own culpability and the conditions that exist in our society today, and as well as the willingness to dismantle the establishment and let that elephant out once and for all. Bravo. Okay, well, we're going to go to our final set of artwork. Okay, here we have Woods in Autumn by Dawn Sanford, who employs oil paints and cold wash on Arches oil paper. Dawn hopes that her work invites the spectator to reflect on all the beauty and diversity our beautiful earth has to offer. And I love the way the chaotic energy of this piece reminds me of the whipping wind swirling the leaves off the trees in autumn. And here we have that piece by Jeannie Roberts, which sits opposite Dale Champlin's poem. Jeannie's abstract stone series, Purpura, is one of two pieces in the book. Her subject matter varies from the organic forms, shapes, and design elements found in nature to the mystical, ceremonial, and picture writing symbols created by ancient civilizations, cultures, and religions. Typically, her compositions attempt to pare down images to their essential universal forms. And finally, Patterns of Privilege, I Stand Upon You, is part of a powerful collection of collage mixed media works by Kathleen Caprario. Over the past decade, Kathleen's work has been informed by the current state of social dynamics and the Black Lives Matter movement. Through her metaphor-laden art, she invites the viewer to question the tropes and assumptions they may hold about race, culture, and place. Okay, we did it. We made it through the whole list. Let's have a big round of applause for all of our artists and poets. I want to thank you, poets, artists, and our audience for joining us in our special Poeming Pigeon edition of the Poetry Box Live. It really means the world to all of us that you joined us here on Zoom to celebrate so much beautiful poetry and art, especially on this very busy time of year. We'll be taking a break for January, but we'll be back in February with our 3 chapbook contest winners, Rosalie Petruski, Michael Glazer, and Susie Harris. So stay tuned for more news about that event and our newsletters, website, and on social media. And to make sure you never miss a submission opportunity, new release, or upcoming show, you can subscribe to our newsletter by going to thepoetrybox.com, where you'll find a sign-up form at the bottom of any webpage. Thanks again for joining us today. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday, and we'll see you next year.
Thank you, Shawn. This is wonderful. I love the mixture of
Thank
poetry.
you, everyone. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank
James.
you, Shawn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. Such an
Good
honor.
to see you all. Thank you, Shawn and Robert.
Thank you to everyone, Shawn and Robert, and everyone who read and everyone who listened. It was an experience.